I'm pretty sure a lot of you feel like no one understands you. You'd say something, and whoever is on the receiving end either brushes it off or weaponizes it and uses it against you. A common occurrence would be when you try to explain your struggles, they trivialize it by comparing it to theirs, or worse, tell you, instead of thinking about this, why not do something more productive? Here's the truth. It's not you, it's them. Allow me to explain. People often like to focus more about the what rather than the why, because it's the faster and easier way to approach something. Our brains naturally look for the least amount of resistance, and that's just how we're wired. But sometimes there are some individuals who really just lack the capacity of entertaining conversations with greater depth. A simple example would be whenever you were little, if you cried in front of your parents, oftentimes the majority of adults would default to saying don't cry, which focuses on the what. But only a select few would be calm enough to sit down and ask you why. It doesn't only exist in our adolescence, as today's society and how it functions likes to highlight the what, such as mainstream news highlighting various controversies of celebrities, what they did, and the action in of itself. Personal relationships and friendships also function at a parallel, like how students in school would shame and seclude a particular teenager for doing something. Perhaps, for example, getting low grades, watching anime and being labeled as a weirdo, or playing games and categorized as a nerd, or other extreme cases. Point being, you'll be ostracized for being different. The reason why there's a scarcity of people willing to ask why and wanting to learn the reason behind you doing something is because it's not easy. It requires being vulnerable and positioning yourself on neutral grounds of no judgment, but rather an attentive observer and listener. But it doesn't mean we're doomed. In fact, it can make things easier when we know how to approach this. So, whenever you're trying to navigate your daily life and interactions, approach it with a disposition of someone testing the waters, not fully diving into it, but not completely dry and uncommitted either. You're able to conserve your energy by trying to gauge whether or not someone is willing to meet you halfway, by simple prodding questions and just by purely observing how they react to certain words and actions. Once you see the signs, you're able to save your time and energy from committing into something which will only serve as a means to an end. But don't be closed off or secluded either, because the people you're looking for is likely doing the same thing. They're also testing the waters. So, if you don't take the agency to at least sprinkle a little of what you're looking for, those individuals who are looking for the same thing won't be able to notice it either. Also, avoid demonizing or antagonizing others, because every one of us are different in our own ways, and if someone's unwilling to read the same page that you're on, then just live your life and move on. Another branch of this concept is the difficulty of removing comparison from the equation when all someone wants is to be understood. When you share your traumas, struggles, and speak your mind, oftentimes you'll be met with, "You have it so much easier." Yeah, I understand. I went through something like that before. You'll be fine. Why are you even complaining? Don't you see others who would do anything to be in your shoes? Now, as a disclaimer, I'm not saying to hide behind your struggles or twist it and rely on your traumas as an easy escape from something, and merely wielding it as a reason you can pull out of your back pocket whenever you meet any form of resistance. What I'm trying to get across is No matter how difficult of a position you think you're in, it's valid. Everyone has problems, sure. There's no end in comparison. No matter the scale and intensity of your problems, it can't be quantitatively measured and pitted against those of others, unless you're comparing literal physical hardships like army veterans suffering from PTSD, then that's a different discussion. The subject matter is more of the mental side of things. There's no harm in empathy, but unless you're able to truly live in someone else's shoes, then you won't be able to truly understand how someone feels 100%. So, if you've ever struggled in vocalizing this matter, just know that if it saddens you when other people respond a certain way, it's alright. If anything, it says more about them rather than you. But in turn, whenever someone else opens up about their struggles, try to be present and consciously not turn into the devil you despised in the first place. Listen to them. You don't have to offer a solution unless asked for, and just be there in the moment. It's fine if you want to share your own experiences, but don't pretend to understand what they're going through. Be the person you yourself are looking for. But if you're looking for a release and you haven't found that person who shares the same wavelength, I implore you to just try journaling. I know. It sounds trivial. You're lazy to do it. You're thinking it probably won't work. It won't erase your problems. And yeah, you're right. It won't erase your problems, but perhaps it will offer you some semblance of peace and solace by being able to externalize and express what's on your mind rather than keeping it in. Whenever people say it's therapeutic to do it, it's really just because you're able to materialize something that's formless, which is your thoughts. It doesn't even have to be a big commitment, just 5 minutes, faster than using the restroom. Get a paper, doesn't have to be a pretty notebook, a scrap paper will do. Get a pen or pencil and just write your heart out. It doesn't have to be structured, it should be messy. If your mind was organized in the first place, you won't be thinking about your struggles anyway. You're not trying to be Shakespeare, you're just trying to be real. So if you take anything from this video, I'd like you to understand this. You're not alone. Your feelings matter. Sure, no one else might be able to understand you fully, but know that someone else out there is also in pain, also looking for someone to understand them. So, at the very least, be that person who you'd like to meet, so that when the time comes and your paths converge with that special person, you'll be ready to have that meaningful exchange and maybe even form a bond that's worth living for. Also, don't downplay the feelings of others, even though nowadays people like to self-diagnose and just feel the need to have a label for everything, but some of them are actually struggling, so don't assume anything, but don't ignore them either. Remember, even if you think the world is already dreadful enough and question yourself, what's the point? Others will do XYZ anyway. As corny as it sounds, be the change you want to see in others. As a Buddhist example, intentionality is what matters. At times, you might think that it's pointless to do good when others around you will do 10 times the amount of bad. But with that same mindset, if you were faced with two options, save 8 people and leave 2 of the remaining, or let all 10 perish, of course you'd still pick to save 8, right? Just a food for thought. So that's it for today's video. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you want to see more of this type of content, then subscribe so you don't miss any uploads. And the topic of discussion might be a little bit grim these past couple of videos, but yeah, I'm still trying to find the flow of how I'm gonna interchange the topics and the frequency at which I do so. And yeah, I'll try to change the topic of discussion for next week, and maybe we can discuss about less grim matters and talk about lighter topics. So yeah, that's all for the video today. If you made it to the end, I appreciate you so much. Thank you. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye bye.